do not say no to work in the beginning. Take it all, because there's a lot of learning that comes with each client that you take on. Even though in your gut, this is not going to work out in the long term. Take it up, because eventually you need to strengthen those gut, cues that you develop after taking those wrong decisions. It's very important to take those wrong decisions.
Hey guys, in today's episode, we have Rhea Mehta, the founder of DigiDuck, a full-service digital marketing agency based in New Delhi. She's worked with clients such as the WHO, popular restaurants in Delhi, and even some notable technology companies based in the US, and so many more. We're super excited to have her on and get to know a little bit about her. So Rhea, thank you so much for joining our podcast. We are really excited to learn about you, about DigiDuck, and how you've turned this into a digital marketing agency. So the first thing I'd like to know is tell us about yourself, about your journey, how you got started into all of this, and a little bit about your sort of learning.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And about my journey, so I would say if we were to go all the way back, I was fairly young when I wanted to step into communications. I decided very early on that this is the field that I need to be in. I was that type A child that went to the library in year 8, sat down, understood, okay, so if I want to be a journalist, this is what I have to study. This is where I have to do my master's. This is where I'll do probably another course. And I'm set. I have to be an editor by this age. And it was all sorted. Follow up, grow up, get out of school, get into journalism and mass communication. Great. And once you graduate from your undergrad and you realize your master's is just a repeat of the same education you've had if you do a master's. So then plan completely changes. I end up studying something I had no clue about, which is advertising and public relations. And I grew to love that subject. So I'm very grateful for that, pivot in my journey. So I started off working with NDTV as a journalist, as a sub-editor, working on the news desk, 12-hour shifts, moving on to doing my master's in advertising and PR, and really getting into the depths of brand and the understanding of how brand is created from scratch. And thankfully, because the digital space was booming at the time when I was studying in my education, so I got to, from scratch work on that, on creating a brand on a digital platform, which is something, say my colleagues who were senior to me did not get to really witness as much as our batches did,
That's true.
The batches we worked with. So right after graduating from my master's, I was placed in a PR agency. Work is great. I get to work with brilliant clients like Honda, PwC, Samsung, the works. But somewhere down the line, I felt like I can't relate to these guys. I do not feel for them. So I am creating communication strategies for them. I'm speaking to journalists, but it's not coming from my heart. And I had a mentor there who was the vice president of the company, and he and I would have these lessons every week where he'd give me tasks and I would just try and, probably upskill myself, learn, new ways to do public relations and understanding communication. And he and I would talk, and he would say, Rhea, you're not really fit for this. You shouldn't be here. You're made to do something bigger, something where you can apply yourself more. So thankfully, because of that sort of early on, that sort of interaction with him, I also realized this is not where I'm supposed to be. And I took the call to leave. So took the leap of faith, had no idea what I'm going to do. And thankfully, I started working in a friend's business, taking care of their communications. And from there, I think very gradually, very organically, people would come out and reach out to, that business. Who's doing your communications? Can we speak to them? Can we, have a word with them? They take my contact information. And from there, I think how I decided to set something up formally was these very talented interns reached out to me and said, we want to work with you because we like the way that you work. I said, sure, let's do that. This was, I think, around 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And I said, okay, fine. Now I need an office. I need a space. And I was like, okay, now I need to set this up. I need a name. Yeah. And it was very organic. And everything that happened, it was not like I had decided I need to set up a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. But somewhere down the line, I mean, it clicked and it made sense. And we grew our clients from there. I mean, till date, we've never run one ad for DigiDuck. It's all been organic. It's all been through word of mouth and through the work that we've put out. So that's pretty much my journey so far.
That's amazing. And I find so many similarities with the way you went about kind of doing things, and one thing led to another, and you kind of just naturally progressed through till you started DigiDuck. And even in that, you were looking at, you had people approach you and sort of see the value in the work you were doing, and it kind of naturally progressed. Rhea, tell us a little bit about like the timeline. So when did you graduate from your college and then master's, and then how long were you at that first job with your mentor where you realized, okay, I'm really enjoying this field. I think this is something I'm good at, and potentially I can venture out on my own and try it.
So timelines were pretty close. I would say I was very, very lucky to have understood early on in my career that, this is what I don't want to do. Some people spend a few years trying and hoping that it works out and then realizing, okay, this doesn't work for me. I think something that worked very well in my favor was starting this early. I was only, I think, around 22 or 23 when I began. So that gave me a lot more scope to take risks.
Nice.
I was at that agency for a couple of months. I think it was like 5 or 6 months. And everyone was telling me, you have to do at least a year. It doesn't look good on your resume when you leave a job so soon. I said, I really don't care about those things. If this is not my place, then it's 6 months wasted of my time that I could do so much more with. So I had to take that call. I mean, lots of people advised me against it, but I'm grateful that I did, because starting early, taking those risks early on, you have much less to lose as when you're younger, and you're not so risk averse. I mean, if I were to take those risks now, I would think 10 times. Versus then I was like, let's just do it, whatever we're, just take it up. Don't think twice.
Yep.
So that helped, definitely.
Okay, so I want to ask you about where DigiDuck came from. I know you have a lot of duck things around your office. Also, I can see one right now right behind you. But where did the name come from? Because I also know, like, in our emails that we've exchanged, you use a lot of duck related words and like greetings. So why DigiDuck? I get the digi, I guess digital and stuff, but the duck part of it.
It's a funny story. So I was very young when I developed this love for ducks. I was around 2 or 3 years old, and whenever we would travel, or my cousins would travel and come back, they'd ask me, what do you want? And I was really tiny. I said, I want a duck. And I got this duck called Duckling. This is a funny story. I still
original name.
Yeah. OG's duck. The duck that started it all. And from there on, I mean, it was just my spirit animal. We would, my sister and I would pretend we're ducks as kids and play these games. And it's just embarrassing, but it really shaped my love for these animals. And it's only when I grew up, when I could understand the meaning behind what a spirit animal really means, I got to know that, ducks represent such a deep spiritual meaning. So I'm sure you've heard of water off a duck's back. So that there's this coating on their fur. Let me get you up to speed.
I would love to hear it.
Podcast about ducks. Okay, let me be warned.
Let's go.
So water off a duck's back is a saying. It's a very old saying where you have thick skin. You don't let things really affect you. You let them roll over your back. You don't take them to heart. And that's something that comes from, this thick sort of layer of wax that ducks have on their feathers. and whenever water does touch them, it just rolls right off. So I could really relate to that, and I always felt that that's something that my thick skin is a very big part of who I am. I don't let things affect me too much. And then there's another very famous saying that ducks look very calm on the surface, but under the water they're paddling very hard.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so
I see.
I may appear very calm on the surface, but behind the scenes there's a lot of hustle, there's a lot of hard work and late nights. And I mean, all of these things together, along with, getting your ducks in a row, so many things just felt like this is, this is the animal that really needs to be out there. It needs public relations. And jokes apart, I just felt it's something that was very me. And organically, my team was called Ducklings, and I was Mama Duck. That's what was cute. So that's just how we ended up. The decision I took. The end.
And then
it was very again organic.
It was easy to extend that into your branding and into how you communicate on your website. Also, it's a lot centered around that. So at least you can be associated with the duck.
Exactly.
All things duck.
Duck lady.
Everyone, nobody forgets the name, and then that's really, really worked well for us.
Nice.
Because people keep coming back, or whenever they think of ducks, they think of us, and that's really helped us kind of create that space for ourselves in your mind.
Yeah.
Yes, we're quacking there. Don't worry.
I love that. That's cute.
So I mean, and on that, right? There's a couple of things that you mentioned. Having thick skin and stuff. That's so important, right? Especially when you're doing sales, when you're reaching out to potential clients, when you're negotiating. So talk about what was that experience like in your early days? And if somebody is trying to get into the space as a freelancer or trying to start their own, I mean, what would you say about potentially handling rejection, how to kind of navigate conversations with clients, and how did you go about doing that? And maybe still to this day.
I think a piece of advice that I would give someone getting into this space is, first of all, do not say no to work in the beginning. Take it all, because there's a lot of learning that comes with each client that you take on. Even though in your gut, this is not going to work out in the long term. Take it up, because eventually you need to strengthen those gut, cues that you develop after taking those wrong decisions. It's very important to take those wrong decisions. So early on in my career, I would not say no to projects. I would take on all the projects that came our way, and from different industries, and just learn as you go. That was the goal. Now, dealing with rejection, having thick skin, you're not going to find people that you can completely relate to, who get where you're coming from at all times, who then tend to also ask a lot more of you than what you're supposed to give. And this is all part of being a service provider. It comes with the profession. So having thick skin, not taking those problems home, those stresses home of being an entrepreneur anyway, comes with unlimited amounts of anxiety and stress. So to learn to develop that skill of creating boundaries is extremely crucial. It is so important, because this happened to me. I had that stage of burnout, and then I realized that I need to calm down and I need to set better boundaries for myself and my mental health. And so, knowing that from the get-go, being prepared for it, avoiding that is also a great strategy to go about having a smoother journey.
That's and I think that what you just said is so fundamental, right? You weren't scared of feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not getting paid the right price for this, maybe this is something that's not worth my time. But the importance of also learning on someone else's dime, right? That's what that enabled you to do, to really hone your skill sets, to realize what you were good at, and and keep those clients happy and coming back, right? Because I think early on, what a lot of people miss out in is that people will only work with you if you've done work with other people, and you can only do that if you are providing absolute value in the beginning. So that's really important. I think what I see a lot of the times with freelancers that I've interacted with is that they get caught up in negotiating of a few thousand rupees or tens of thousands of rupees.
Yeah.
Whereas, focus on skill sets. And like, how did you get to that point? I mean, you must have started where, you were doing things where you felt maybe you weren't getting the exact value that you deserve in terms of like your pricing and stuff like that. And how did you make that transition into feeling like, okay, now we are able to charge what we deserve, and we're going to choose who we work with? Because I think that's the transition that, a lot of people kind of go through.
So again, as I said initially, we never said no. Now we say no more than yes. So this is something that happened very gradually. This is something that we realized that it's so important to be there to be synergy between both the parties, and because essentially you are becoming a team if you are taking a client on, and if you don't understand each other's vision, then it's just not work out for both. So saying no now, I mean, the next step after a particular time is learn when to say no.
Yeah.
And you will eventually, I mean, with time, you understand in the first meeting, that this is not going to work out. However the pricing works very well, however they are doing it at your terms, still you just get that feeling in your gut. So learning to understand and listen to that voice that says no, it's not going to work out in the long term is
so
something
Right. So I actually started working with this chart. Okay. On the y-axis, I had the amount of money I could make from them. On the x-axis, I had the amount of asshole they were. If the asshole ever crosses 3, you don't work with them, regardless of how much money it is.
I love that. Please send that to me. I mean,
and how many people cross that for you?
It's hard, man. Sometimes the money is like, okay, it's worth it. 3.5 asshole is okay today. Yeah.
No, but how many of the clients you had past the 3?
None right now. Okay, I'm not going to talk shit about my clients right now. They're all good.
Wise.
Trying to get the truth out.
That is actually very honestly put. That is essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Do both those levels match? Is it worth the effort, love, energy, time it's going to take versus the money that they're giving you? But as you mentioned, in the beginning, you need to work on creating that skill set. That's very important. So rather than having really expensive packages so that we limit the kind of clients we get, we kept our packages in the beginning, they were quite low so that we could learn. I could also learn as I was going. I was not someone who was extremely confident as to where I was in the space I was, because I just started off. It would be naive of me to say from the get-go, I know everything. That's not possible. So as and when, I think it comes with being in this space, becoming more comfortable with this work, your confidence increases. And then you can demand and your value better.
Right.
Because you have to work on upskilling yourself. You can't just sit there just because I've been sitting here for 5 years, so I have, my packages have increased. You need to add to your skill set. You need to improve your offerings. You need to, as you work in this space, you also learn the gaps. You need to fill those gaps better and get on more creative people and better talent. And automatically, people see that value. And with confidence, then you can, quote what you deserve.
So there's 2 things that I wanted to touch upon, right? The one thing that you mentioned is like, you looked at your packages, and I'm sure you do customized services. I mean, what is your opinion on this? Do you think packages is the way to go? Do you think it's better to have customized solutions? And what are some of the advantages and disadvantages you've faced working with these 2 strategies?
See, initially we started with a set package. And as we spend time in this space, we learned that every brand has very different requirements, very different needs. And we also pivoted to creating more, custom teams for our clients. We would not have, full-time employees working on, say, 10 clients. We would create a specific team with people who have experience in that industry, in that space. And so because of that and the varying requirements and needs of the brands, we create customized packages. So it evolved with the requirements of our clients. And I mean, still to this date, we have lots of agencies that create packages for their clients. But one client can never have the same requirement as the other. So to be able to bridge that gap is where a lot of agencies need to then alter their input.
So and that brings me to what you said, right? Like especially, I mean, I think definitely in the creative space that we're in the creative field, right? It's not that, you know, you can be given tickets and you're like, okay, Rhea, now upload social media, right? Like you are basically joining hands with them, coming up with ideas, conceptualizing thing. How do you kind of look at that as something that you do as a service, and make sure that businesses understand that? Because I think a lot of the times when businesses go on websites and they see like maybe 5,000 rupees social media package, they're inclined to take it, and it makes sense in the sense that they probably have a budget in mind, of you know, what they're willing to spend. How do you go about kind of explaining to your clients or telling to your clients, or what do you think it's important for businesses to understand when they're trying to work with an agency, a freelancer, or even hiring for their social media or marketing team?
So there are two kinds of clients. There's one that has very staunch budgets in mind, and there's one that is looking for value. They don't really mind the price that value comes at. So it is on, you know, us to show them that value and show them, look, this is where we're coming from. This is our, you know, what we're giving you. And we have to have that why for that X number that we've put out. You can't just assume that they will understand off the bat that this is why you deserve this much. You need to show that to them. So, and I have clients that say, but I'm getting this work from this agency in this much. Then I tell them, then if that matches your budget, then go ahead with that, because, you know, that makes sense for you. But, you know, we provide X value that those agencies may not be able to provide.
Right.
So you need to have that, you know, that standout from your competitors to be able to quote that number, because you can get people who do it for, as you said, 5,000.
Yeah.
Say 5 lakhs. There are agencies that charge 50 lakhs. So how do you distinguish the value addition from the two is totally, wholly, solely dependent on how you project your value.
Right.
I'm gonna ask more of a, tell us about, since you've talked so much about like your clients and the portfolio of clients you have, what is one of the most like the fun projects you've worked on, or like, because, you know, is it the more the restaurant oriented ones because of a personal interest, or is it because of, or any other like fun project that you're more inclined to usually, or the clients that you'd say yes to because of another reason rather than all the other factors that play?
See, I personally love hospitality in that space. I come from that space. It's something I enjoy as a individual, but my individual taste and my individual interest cannot govern how the business grows. So I mean, we've just got on a health client, that the company that manufactures oxygen concentrators and air purifiers. They have nothing to do with hospitality. They are not as fun. But for me, personally speaking, getting into a new space is fun. Getting to understand an industry from scratch, to, you know, read about their competitors, research, that is what excites me.
Nice.
I personally get bored of doing the same thing every single day. I mean, any entrepreneur would. So there is only so much new information you can gather from one industry, which is why we've not stuck to, you know, say one space. And that's really, that's kept us on our toes and made sure that, you know, there was no dull moment, that we were always learning, always growing and upskilling ourselves.
So I mean, talk about that. I mean, so you said that, you know, whenever you get a new client or they're talking to you about, you know, where their industry is in and you know, the benefits or the values that company has, what is your research process, and how would you what would you suggest to businesses going about launching their marketing campaign? What are the steps you would tell them to take to kind of identify where their benefits lie and how they can kind of utilize their competitive advantage?
So first of all, we always begin with the market research to understand the competitor landscape. What is the space that we're dealing with? Who is in this space, and what are the gaps that the competitors are not filling? And then we create a strategy for our client to fill those gaps.
Nice.
How are we, you know, improving that space? Then second of all, there is this document that we've created that we make our clients fill, which makes them really, it's quite a long document. It takes them 2 to 3 hours to really sit and, understand. But that has really proven to help them also understand where they want to be, what their brand really represents, and for us to then create better communication for them. So we ask them in very abstract questions as well. If your brand was a person and they walked into the room, what were the personality traits your brand would have?
Wow.
And it's an ordeal, and it's a very fun task also to really fill that out. But it gives them a lot of understanding, because most brands, I don't know about the ones you work with, a lot of the companies we end up working with don't have their foundations in place, their basics. And they're not aware of what brand identity is. And then you have to really explain that this is the basis for your brand and what people think of when they think of your brand. Yeah. And you are the person who has to project that. If you don't have that in place, how will your customer know what they have to think about your brand? So starting from there, that document really helps shape the direction of how we're going to strategize for our clients. And the market research then assists us in understanding the space and how we can be better than the competitors.
And like this market research process, right? And this document, this fact find document, this is something that they're able to take, maybe 1 to 5 years down the line, even if they're not working with you guys as well, right? So I think it's more of like an introspective angle. In my experience, right? Like, especially with technology founders or just product people, right? They talk about the features or, the value of the product rather than the actual benefit to the end consumer. And I think more than half my time is spent working with people, trying to get them to talk to me about the benefits. It doesn't matter if you're building the next generation AI software. If a person walking into a McDonald's doesn't need to know that the value that's adding, he doesn't really care, right? If he's able to get his food faster, that's value to him. Right.
Yeah,
so
very true.
Yeah.
So getting into the customer's mindset and understanding from their perspective is so crucial when also creating communication. Because you have to say what they want to hear. If you're going to just be screaming off the roof what your company does and what they can do, why would a customer care? They'll be like, scroll, I don't have time for this. You're already dealing with people with shortest attention span. So it's so crucial to reach them where they really care. And that again comes from that perspective, which not everyone has.
So Rhea, I wanted to switch the format a bit. I wanted to ask you more about what are your thoughts on the way social media is today. From 5 years ago, I think me and you started at similar times, right? It seemed that, organic content and Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and specifically looking at these platforms was something you were able to do. It wasn't that you had to be super specific about the type of content, but it seems like now, you have different types of content within a single platform. There's so many other variables that go into it. How do you kind of stay up to date with what's happening, and what are some of the things that you are seeing today that businesses can kind of utilize to leverage their online presence and stuff?
First of all, if you are creating content or you're working on a platform, you need to know the platform. You need to be active on the platform. Right. The algorithms evolve almost on a monthly basis. So reading up about them, keeping up to date about how they're evolving, how, they're because if, say, you create a brilliant piece of communication, it's a wonderful content piece for your client, but because of the algorithm, it just does not reach your customer base.
Right.
So all that hard work of generating quality content goes to complete waste if you don't know how to optimize your platform. So that is extremely crucial when dealing with, say, social media platforms, is to know the platform in and out, understand how to optimize it and get better results. So that is something that I consume a lot of information about this. I've signed up with newsletters, I watch videos, try to stay up to date, and my team as well. So I try to bring on people that have a skill set in one specific,
area
and domain. For example, I'll bring on someone who just does social media ads. That's it.
Okay.
Simply put, they do not involve themselves in the production of the content. They don't involve
Nice.
themselves in the content writing of that. They just focus on the ads. So then that person knows ads in and out. They know how to optimize it. They are experts in their domain, and that really helps us. So we don't try and,
I got you. So what, like, specialization has now been so important, and that's so interesting, right? Like, I think what happens is when an organization or a business is going out to hire an agency, they love the whole thing of an end-to-end 360 agency. But at the end of the day, I mean, these things are becoming increasingly complex, increasingly, there's like modules and courses for Facebook ads, and Facebook ads can dive into, like you mentioned, so many different aspects. And even for one person to do that job is an immense task. For them to then be able to do 500 other things is like near impossible, or not nearly as valuable as like the organization would think. And on that, right, like how does a company go? For example, let's say you've launched a product. How do you choose, or how would you suggest somebody to like start? Should they do LinkedIn? Should they do Facebook ads? Should they, post reels on Instagram? How would you go about like suggesting or kind of devising a marketing or a launch strategy for someone?
It depends from client to client. For example, let's go back to my hospitality clients. We have a chain of restaurants that provides global cuisine. Now, for them to have a LinkedIn page would make absolutely no sense whatsoever. And to run LinkedIn ads would be a big waste of advertising.
So my counter to that be, there's people on LinkedIn, people like to eat. Wouldn't they want to see the ads of food?
People on LinkedIn love to eat. Everybody loves to eat. But there's a time, place. So the mindset with which someone's using LinkedIn is, I'm working. This is my work time. And this is me talking about my professional growth and my professional accolades. Nobody's there talking about their personal life, what they're having for lunch, putting those cheers boomerangs of their wine glass.
That's Facebook.
That's not even Facebook anymore. That's now just Instagram.
Yeah.
So to understand the platform and the users and what they're communicating where. For example, communication on Snapchat is very different from, let's say, Facebook. And it's evolving with time. Now that older generations have joined Facebook, you see a shift. The younger ones have left Facebook. They're not really that active. So for our customer base, when say we have an older demographic that we're dealing with, we'll put in more emphasis on Facebook ads versus, let's say, Instagram ads, because it makes more sense to allocate our budget where our consumers are.
So you think it's all down to the interest groups, the demographic of the product itself, and that kind of dictates everything about the launch and the marketing strategy and stuff?
It's all about the end consumer at the end of the day. You can want to be cool and hip and be, active on, let's say, Instagram, but if it doesn't make sense, if your consumer is not there, then it's an absolute waste of, time, energy, effort, everything.
And also, I think that, like what you mentioned was important. If it's just not you, then there's no point doing it, right? If you're like some 55-year-old ex-engineer and you're dancing on fucking TikTok or some shit, like that's not gonna work. Like maybe it could, I don't know. I take that back. Actually, maybe it could work. It could work.
It actually sounded like a funny video.
Yeah. For example, if we were to project, say, our hospitality client in a very professional manner, like make it a parody on LinkedIn, and talk as if we're hiring fresh buns. Let's say we put out a fun sort of content piece on that. We can definitely leverage that platform in an interesting way. That's when you stand out. Versus if you were to just put the same content that you put on Instagram to LinkedIn. People are going to, I'm sitting here and working, man. You're making me hungry in the middle of the day. What do I do? So to optimize, you can. There are really cool ways you can stand out. I think, like for example, Wendy's really has used Twitter brilliantly to create a niche for themselves in terms of that witty communication that they put out. So why not? You can definitely leverage it. But then your brand, it has to come with your brand. Now, if your brand isn't a witty, sort of a persona, it has a more elegant and a more eclectic sort of feel, which is again with our client in this space. So it would make sense to leverage that. It would be a way. So all of these factors then come into play, not just the end consumer, I would say, even the brand identity, who the brand is, what they represent. It has to be in sync with that.
Nice.
And how do you think like COVID and pandemic over the last year now, second year, has affected what you've said up until now about the whole process and about even acquiring new clients? Is it the same? Has it changed, or do you see it changing more considering the situation in India, especially?
I mean, I think this time around, our Indian clients have definitely learned how to deal with this better. When it first hit, India, and it first hit the world, everyone was unaware as to how to deal with this. Everyone is frazzled, and a lot of our clients paused work, especially in the hospitality space. They paused work because, I mean, they're not getting customers. They don't know whether they're going to be able to pay their employees. So there was a lot of confusion then. I think this time around, they know that this will come. This slump is going to be there, and it will pick up once things improve, once the lockdown reopens. So in terms of hospitality, yes, there was a lot of trouble that everyone faced in that space. But let's say one of my tech clients right now, they're a virtual event platform. COVID has been a blessing for them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Grown massively. So our work for them has just, quadrupled over the last 1 year because they've been growing because of COVID. Yeah. So it totally depends on also the opportunities. For example, again, this health client I was mentioning, oxygen concentrators are what everyone is talking about right now. Yeah. And air purifiers, again, is very, very crucial to everybody living in this country. So again, they have an opportunity. They're using that. A lot of our clients are then pivoting their work. And then hospitality clients, for example, they are creating COVID special meals and they're sending them across to COVID patients. So they are evolving and they're trying to, survive in this very, very tumultuous space that we're dealing with right now.
So Rhea, I wanted to ask you sort of last question before you wrap up, right? Like I wanted to know, fundamentally, right? A marketer can market anything. I'm sure I can give you a potato and you'll find a way to make a story out of it and try to sell it, right? But at the end of the day, how important or how fundamental do you think it is for your product to actually be something of value to a customer? It can be, something which is maybe out there already, but and is that something that you look for now when you're working with clients to identify what is that thing that causes that magnetism or causing their target audience to like reach out and stuff like that, and like how do you go about finding that, and is that something that can be created after the fact?
See, I feel that we need to give a lot more credit to the end consumer, something that a lot of people tend to think is that consumers are stupid. No, they're not. They can see through your bullshit. If you're trying to sell them a potato when they don't need it, they'll see through it. So again, it does boil down to the efficacy and the vision behind that product and how it will help the consumer. So for us to be aligned with a company that may not stand the test of time because it just does not have a proper product, it'll just be redundant for us to go down that road. So we always try to work with companies, and we also try to, see whether this is something that could blow up and have the potential to really, really grow. So why we would want to align with that. I mean, and even it's naive to, think that people can't see through that. Everybody can see through it eventually. You can market it, you can put a lot of, dress it up nicely, but at the end of the day, that potato is potato. It's going to be a potato.
I think and that's so true, right? Like today's online customer has never been smarter. I think we're at a stage where this is not the first or second time people are buying something online. This is probably like maybe the 100th or 1,000th time people are purchasing products. So they've understood what a easy and clear process has become, and it's also like set the benchmark for anybody entering the space trying to like either sell their product online or market their product online. It's like it is hard. You're now competing, even unintentionally, you're competing, let's say user experience wise, you're competing against Amazon, whether you like it or not. If I'm buying your t-shirt, I better have the smoothest sort of process possible. And on that, I mean, like if a client comes to you and says, Rhea, I want to sort of like, I mean, I don't know if you guys do this, but like if I want to build a website or something, are you trying to nudge them to towards using things that have already pre-built? And this could, go into your marketing strategy as well. Is it better to follow existing strategies and processes that work, be it with tools, software, or even like, coming up with copy ideas? Or should they take the leap and like kind of do whatever they want to experiment? And how far should you take that experimentation?
It's a risk, and a lot of that experiment could work out beautifully, or it could just fall flat on your face.
Yeah.
So to be able to know whether this client is open to that level of experimentation, a lot of clients want you to stick to this trajectory of the path that's already been taken. Please do not go down the road less traveled. Then if we do genuinely see value in taking that crossroad and trying something new, and we see that if we believe in it, then it's our job to show that to our client.
Right.
And most of the times I feel when a client does take you on, it's because they trust you.
Yeah.
And in this space, trust is so important because, as you said, there are people out there that, I've had clients tell us horror stories of, say a website designer leaves you midway, runs off with your login password or hacks you, or tries to haggle money out of you to, sell you your own domain name. It's insane. I mean, the kind of stories you hear. So trust, it all boils down to that. Now, if they do trust you, they trust that you know where you're taking them, then I've seen lots of clients are very open to taking risks. But it's not easy to get them there. It's not been easy. They want to try and do things that have worked out in the past. And that's fair. I mean, I can understand there's a lot at stake, but there's so much to gain if your risk does work out well for you.
That's awesome. And I think, Rhea, closing question, what do you think is your biggest competitive advantage? Why do your clients keep coming back to you, to DigiDuck, and what makes you guys special?
I think
there's no answer for you.
Fair enough. Actually, that's probably it. We're called DigiDuck.
No, but jokes apart, I mean, as I said, it's all about trust. It's honestly, for us, we've had clients that have worked with us from the first year of us starting till now. They're still with us. It's all because of the fact that they trust us, and the fact that when we work on a project, we take it on as if it's our own. There is no difference between like a client and an employee or a client and an agency when we take it on. So they also tend to gauge that, and they appreciate that addition that we provide, as well as because we have pivoted to create a more holistic sort of end-to-end space for them to come to, where we also now, as you said, we've also got in the website space. So from brand identity to creating your website to all your other marketing collaterals and touch points to your social media, your PR, we've tried to create a space where we can provide all of those facilities to our clients. That service really helps them. That has really proven to help our clients.
Awesome. Rhea, thank you so much. And guys, if you're a business operator in Delhi or anywhere in the world, you should get in touch with Rhea and she'll DigiDuck your brand up.
Oh my God.
I got you. Catch that. Quack it up. Oh, sorry. She'll quack your brand up.